Hey folks, welcome back. Derek with Worldwide Railroad here. Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure to subscribe and like the video, and as always, leave a comment below. Today I've got an awesome locomotive review for you. It's the MTH BR44 PS3. This happens to be the French version, so it's in the dark green livery. I came across this locomotive actually thanks to the Matt and Matt podcast and their Discord server. I was in there and someone said that there was a guy selling an English locomotive that MTH had made and matching passenger cars on the OGR forum. I reached out to him and he said that someone else had just bought them, but he said, oh, by the way, I've got this BR44 as well. So I snagged the opportunity. I couldn't say no to that. I've always loved German locomotives. That's where this one originally comes from, even though this one was actually designed after the ones built in France. And I picked it up. Now, you may have actually heard about this BR44 already from Eric Strains. He was actually the person who picked up that English locomotive and matching passenger cars. And then he also found out about the BR44. But I happen to have actually been the person who picked it up. But anyway, this is an amazing locomotive, and what made picking this up even more exciting, coincidentally, was about 2 weeks after picking it up, I found out that a local hobby shop that specialized in trains, but also in a lot of other things like card games, board games, etc., happened to be unfortunately going out of business. That said, something I had not noticed there in my previous trips was they had the 5-pack French matching passenger cars in the dark green livery that goes with this locomotive. So of course I had to run over there, grab those passenger cars to go with it. They're absolutely stunning. I love MTH's European tooling. I think it's a shame that we have not had any reruns of any of that tooling, and also that some of it has actually been sold. In fact, I like to call the BR44 somewhat mythical because it actually has had the tooling sold. The tooling for this locomotive was sold to Lenz, which is a German company, and they are actually producing the BR44, but they are producing it in 2-rail for O scale. So, unfortunately, MTH, unless they decide to redo the tooling and remake it, we are not going to get this locomotive again run by MTH. So anyway, please enjoy, sit back and relax.
Alright, so this locomotive has a bit of a long history, but I think given how impressive it is, it's worth sharing. So the history dates back to the 1920s when the German Reichsbahn had taken over more than 120 quite different locomotive types from the former state railways. Nearly a quarter of the 33,000 engines that they had at that time were lost as reparation payments from the end of World War I. There were no more bigger locomotives available for heavy-duty mainline network. So in this critical situation, a program for standards and production of steam engines would help, much like we had here in the US. A limited range of classes was specified according to the issues and sizes required. All of them should be designed from uniform and exchangeable components, so they could be built in series, efficiently operated, and reasonably maintained. The results were the standard engines, or, in German, Einheitslokomotiven, becoming the basis for development and construction for German locomotives over the next 20 years. As heavy standard engines for mainline freight service, the concept provided the classes 43 and 44. The BR44 had 3 instead of 2 cylinders, and approximately 2,000 horsepower and a capable speed of approximately 50 miles per hour. It was stronger and faster than the 43. The 2 pilot series of 10 engines each were built in 1926 and tested by comparison. Due to the Great Depression, the development of the more expensive BR44 was discontinued, but in 1937 the series production was resumed. Meanwhile, the German Reichsbahn was dependent on the high performance of the BR44. Then the engines got Wagner smoke deflectors, a reheat economizer, and new welded 2x2 T34 tenders. During World War II, some components were simplified, but the BR44K, which was a wartime transition, was less de-skilled than other locomotives were. The input of domestic materials, emission of smoke deflectors, and the second side window. Nearly 2,000 engines were built until 1945, and they proved successful as the most efficient freight engines of the German Reichsbahn. After World War II, 1,242 engines found their way to West Germany, and 355 found their way to East Germany. They were urgently needed for reconstruction of the country and soon got modernized. The Deutsche Bahn attached Witte smoke deflectors, replaced the pumps, and added new headlights. Meanwhile, the Eastern German Railway simply changed the smoke deflectors and experimented with coal dust-fired engines. Both German railways converted part of the engines to oil burners. From this period, the big locomotives were given the nickname jumbos, as strong, untiring, and good-natured beasts of burden. During the German Wirtschaftswunder, the jumbos were significantly contributing to the recovery and the success of the industry. They hauled heavy ore and coal trains, material and bulk freight transports, but also mixed freight trains with manufacturing goods over long routes and many gradients. The legendary train known as the Long Henry of the 1960s and 70s routinely hauled 4,000-ton ore trains from the North Sea coast to the industrial rural region. The BR44 engines were in regular service until the end of the German steam era, which was the 1977 in the west and 1981 in the east. The Class 44 had also been built in France in 1942, and some of these engines remained in service with the SNCF after the end of the war. In 1946, the French locomotive factories built 226 more with minor modifications. They were taken over into the SNCF roster as Series 150X, being the most powerful and the heaviest freight steam engines in France. They were assigned to industrial transport in the EST region in green livery and in the Nord region, NORD, in black livery. 48 engines were sold to the Turkish railways as well in 1955. All the rest were withdrawn from service until 1965, as the era of the electric traction came quickly in France.
Alright, let's dive into a closer look at this engine. As you can see, you've got the logo on the front of the engine, and you can see the traditional coupler as well that actually comes for these European locomotives down here. Now, this coupler comes with the engine for both the front and the back, as well as the passenger cars. So if you were looking to be extraordinarily prototypical, you would not have the knuckle couplers like I do, and you would use those couplers in front of the engine that way. Now, I have thought about doing that, but that said, there are times where I just like to have the engine run and have different cars behind it for fun, and also have the passenger cars attached behind other engines as well. I won't lie, they look quite good behind some of my Pennsylvania engines. So, that said, I use the knuckle couplers. But you can see here, right, they've got the front lamps. These are all both LEDs and light up. The front buffers here are also spring-loaded so that they repel. The detail, the wiring on this engine is simply amazing. I think the BR44 and the other European locomotives that, especially the steam engines that MTH did, are some of the best examples of how well they could produce steam engines. The detail, the quality, it's really next level. I have not seen it, honestly speaking, on anything else, either MTH or Lionel. And that I think it's a shame that MTH sold some of this tooling, and that they don't reproduce any that they do still have. That said, you never know. The future holds lots of unexpected surprises, so hopefully we'll see those changes. But you can see there's tons of additional add-on detail all across the boiler with the piping and the wires. The drive rods, everything, the detail down below is simply amazing. If I zoom in correctly, you can see the lights here, right? If I had the engine on and when it's running later, you can see the lights that hang down. These light up as well. It's just absolutely stunning. And of course, you know, we've got a real coal load tender, and the tender itself is simply amazing. The detail to the tender and the trucks, everything is spot on. It really is amazing how much they did with this locomotive. And what's also wild too is just the coupling and everything. It comes like this. Now, one of the things that MTH did with this locomotive, and I don't know about the other European ones because I only own this one. But this one actually comes in the box attached to a wooden display board. So to get it off the display board, you actually have to unscrew the engine and the tender, and then pull those screws out and pull the engine off the board and then put it on here. It is by far the most complicated packaging I have ever had for any steam locomotive. But given the detail and everything else with it, it really is something else. Now, of course, I've mentioned the passenger cars, and we'll take a quick look at those as well. So we'll just slide this up here a little bit. This is obviously the not the baggage, but the post car, right? For the French train. Simply beautiful, looks great. The detail on it is wonderful. I don't think the doors open, no. Yeah, but they're great as well. As you can see, it's got the knuckle coupler, but you can also see that if I were to choose, I could swap it over to the prototypical coupler for the French locomotive and passenger cars and run it like that. And of course, a quick look at the passenger cars themselves. The detail of the passenger cars as well is amazing. The interior has seating, the lighting looks great. It's not even like that bright light, it's that much more, I think, prototypical lighting you would expect of passenger cars of this era. The detailing on top, you know, the wiring, everything else, it's all amazing. The trucks look fantastic. MTH did smashed it out of the park with these cars.
Attention, quai numéro 2. Éloignez-vous de la bordure du quai.
La pression est bonne.
Well, folks, that about does it. Thanks for tuning in and watching this video about the MTH BR44. I hope you enjoyed taking a closer look at it as much as I enjoy running it on the layout. As always, be sure to subscribe and like the video. I really appreciate it and it helps the channel. Additionally, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you like European steam locomotives and other foreign locomotives? If so, what do you like? Is it European steam? Is it Japanese steam? Where else do you like to see? What else would you like to see out there? We always get tons of American engines, and I do love the American engines. They're awesome, but it would be nice, I think personally, to see more foreign, not just steam, but also diesel and electric as well. So be sure to tell me what you think below in the comments. Thanks as always.